गिरिवरदारी यशोदानंदन भज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन भज जन रंजन यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज विहारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज विहारी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा श्रील प्रभुपदा एवं विष्णुपाद परमहंस प्रत्यक्ष अष्टोत्तर श्री श्रीमती स्वयं श्री भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। इस्कॉन संस्थापकाचार्य श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। एवं विष्णुपाद परमहंस प्रत्यक्ष अष्टोत्तर श्री श्रीमद भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय। एवं विष्णुपाद लखोर किशोरदास महाराज की जय। एवं विष्णुपाद सच्चिदानंद श्री भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। एवं विष्णुपाद वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथ दास महाराज की जय। जय श्री रूप सनातन भट्टर गुना श्री जी गोपाल भट्टदास अपना षट गोस्वामी प्रभु की जय। नमाचार्य श्रीदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से गुरु श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री द्वैत दादा गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपिनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। श्री श्री गौरांगी बेंगलोर ईश्वर भगवान की जय। श्री मायापुर धाम की जय। श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय। गंगा माई की जय। यमुना माई की जय। भक्ति देवी की तुलसी देवी की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव की जय। श्री नाम संकीर्तन की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद भागवतम की जय। इस्कॉन वर्तमान गुरु वंदे की जय। समर्थ भक्त देवी गौर प्रेमानंदे all glories to the assembled, all glories to the assembled, all glories to the assembled, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, all glories to Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam, Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamati Hare, Ashtaprayeshu Patreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhakti Bhakti Naishti. Hare Krishna. Welcome you all to the Thursday morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. Today we are discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 32, Text 34 to Text 36. Kriya kratubirdhanais tapasvadhyaya marshanaihi atmendriya jayenapi sanyasena cha karmanam yogena vividangena bhakti yogena chaivahi dharmena no bhayat chihnena ya pravritti nivartiman atmatattva bodhena vairagyena dृढेन च ईयते भगवान एभिः सगुणो निर्गुण स्वदृक् क्रियया क्रतुभिर्धानैः तपस्वाध्याय मर्शनैः आत्मेन्द्रियजयेनापि संन्यासेन च कर्मणां योगेन विविधाङ्गेन भक्तियोगेन चैव हि धर्मेणो भयच्छिन्नेन यः प्रवृत्ति निवृत्तिमान् आत्मतत्त्वबोधेन वैराग्येन दृढेन च ईयते भगवान् एभिः सगुणो निर्गुणः स्वदृक् क्रियया क्रतुभिर्धाने तपस्वाध्यायमर्शनैः आत्मेन्द्रियजयेनापि संन्यासेन च कर्मणां योगेन विविधाङ्गेन भक्तियोगेन चैव हि धर्मेणोभयच्छिन्नेन यः प्रवृत्ति निवृत्तिमान् आत्मतत्त्वबोधेन वैराग्येन दृढेन च ईयते भगवान् एभिः सगुणो निर्गुणः स्वदृक् Translation Srila Prabhupada ki jai. By performing fruitive activities and sacrifices, by distributing charity, by performing austerities, by studying various literatures, by conducting philosophical research, by controlling the mind, by subduing the senses, by accepting the renounced order of life, and by performing the prescribed duties of one's social order, by performing the different divisions of yoga practice, by performing devotional service, and by exhibiting the process of devotional service containing the symptoms of both attachment and detachment, by understanding the science of self-realization, and by developing a strong sense of detachment, one who is expert in understanding the different poses of self-realization realizes the Supreme Personality of Godhead as he is represented in the material world as well as in transcendence. As it is stated in the previous verse, one has to follow the principles of the scriptures. There are different prescribed duties for persons in the different social and spiritual orders. Here it is stated that performance of fruitive activities and sacrifice and distribution of charity are activities meant for persons who are in the householder order of society. There are 4 orders of the social system: Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasa. For the Grihasthas or householders, performance of sacrifices, distribution of charity, and action according to prescribed duties are especially recommended. Similarly, austerity, study of Vedic literature, and philosophical research are meant for the Vanaprasthas or retired persons. Study of the Vedic literature from the bona fide spiritual master is meant for the brahmachari or student. Atmendriya Jaya, control of the mind and taming of the senses, meant for persons in the renounced order of life. All these different activities are prescribed for different persons so that they may be elevated to the platform of self-realization and from there to Krishna consciousness or devotional service. The word Bhakti Yogena, Jaiva, he mean that whatever is to be performed, as described in verse 34, whether yoga or sacrifice or fruitive activity or study of Vedic literature or philosophical research or acceptance of renounced order of life, is to be executed in Bhakti Yoga. The word Chaivahi, according to Sanskrit grammar, indicate that one must perform all these activities mixed with devotional service, otherwise such activities will not produce any fruit. Any prescribed activity must be performed for the sake of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is confirmed Bhagavad Gita 9:27. Yat karosi yadasnasi, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you sacrifice, whatever austerities you undergo, and whatever charities you give, the result should be given to the Supreme Lord. The word eva is added indicating that one must execute activities in such a way. Unless one adds devotional service to all activities, he cannot achieve the desired result. But when Bhakti Yoga is prominent in every activity, then the ultimate goal is sure. One has to approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, as it is stated in Bhagavad Gita. After many births, one approaches the Supreme Person Krishna and surrenders unto him, knowing that he is everything. Also in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasam. For anyone who is undergoing rigid austerity or for anyone performing different kinds of sacrifices, the beneficiary is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the proprietor of all planets and he is the friend of every living soul. The words Dharmeno Bhaya Chihnena mean that the Bhakti Yoga process contains two symptoms, namely attachment for the Supreme Lord and detachment from all material affinities. There are two symptoms of advancement in the process of devotional service, just as there are two processes taking place while eating. A hungry man feels strength and satisfaction from eating, and at the same time, he gradually becomes detached from eating anymore. Similarly, with the execution of devotional service, real knowledge develops and one becomes detached from all material activities. In no other activity but devotional service is there such detachment from matter and attachment for the Supreme. There are 9 different processes to increase this attachment to the Supreme Lord: hearing, chanting, remembering, worshipping, serving the Lord, making friendship, praying, offering everything, and serving the lotus feet of the Lord. The process for increasing detachment from material affinities are explained in verse 36. One can achieve elevation to the higher planetary systems like the heavenly kingdom by executing one's prescribed duties and by performing sacrifices. When one is transcendental to such desires because of accepting the renounced order of life, he can understand the Brahman feature of the Supreme. And when one is able to see his real constitutional position, he sees all other processes and becomes situated in the stage of pure devotional service. At that time, he can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. Understanding of the Supreme Person is called Atma Tattva Avabodhena, which means understanding of one's real constitutional position. If one actually understands one constitutional position as an eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord, he becomes detached from the service of the material world. Everyone engages in some sort of service. If one does not know one's constitutional position, one engages in the service of his personal gross body or his family, society, or country. But as soon as one is able to see his constitutional position, the word Swadrip means one is able to see. He becomes detached from such material service and engages himself in devotional service. As long as one is in the modes of material nature and is performing the duties prescribed in the scriptures, he can be elevated to higher planetary systems, where the predominating deities are material representations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, like the Sun God, the Moon God, the Air God, Varuna, and Lord Shiva. All the different demigods are material representations of the Supreme Lord. By material activities, one can approach only such demigods as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 9:25. Yanti Deva Bhutha Devan. Those who are attached to the demigods and who perform the prescribed duties can approach the abodes of the demigods. In this way, one can go to the planets of Pitas or forefathers. Similarly, one who fully understands the real position of his life adopts devotional service and realizes the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmantamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Dapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganargunathanvitam Tam Stipam Sadvaitam Sabdutam Parjana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Saganaranta Shri Vishakan Vidamscha Ye Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpati Gopeshwa Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Taptkanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanuste Devi Pranamami Haripriya Vanchakalpatarvescha Kapasnadubhyeva Cha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Muham Karvadi Vachalam Bangam Nandi Digirim Padam Muhammad Shri Gurum Deta Manam Shri Chaitanya Mishra. Hare Krishna. So here Srila Prabhupada has given a very long purport for these 3 verses that shows the importance of this verse as we are coming to the conclusion of this chapter. In this verse, we see the different types of prescribed duties that are meant for those who are situated in different ashramas. And then what these can lead one to by performing these duties, and how can one be freed from bondage from these activities, and what is the perfection of life, that is self-realization. So one has to follow the principles of, or one has to perform his duties based on what is mentioned in the scriptures. Now, the Lord himself has created this system of varnashrama, the four varnas and the four ashramas. So the four varnas are Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, and the four ashramas are Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasa. So in the first paragraph, as we see here, we'll go through it a little more in detail. The performance of fruitive activities and sacrifices and distribution of charity. These are all activities meant for those in the Grihastha order of life. That means one who is having a Grihastha life, he performs fruitive activities, performs sacrifices, and also distribution of charity. So when one performs these activities, then automatically one gets the results also. Similarly, one is supposed to study, perform austerities, study Vedic literatures, and understand by philosophical literatures. One is supposed to do that, but this is for one who is in the Vanaprastha or the retired person. So Vedic literatures, study of Vedic literatures from a Vanavajpayit Acharya is meant for brahmachari or a student. Now, control of the mind and taming of the senses is meant for persons in the renounced order of life. So all these different activities are meant prescribed for different persons so that they may be elevated to the platform of self-realization, and from there to Krishna consciousness and devotional service. Now, if we see here, the first few activities that are meant for one in Grihastha, performance of sacrifices, distribution of charity. Now, a Grihastha is supposed to receive income, whereas a Brahmana or a Brahmachari or a Sannyasi, they don't have any sources of income. So a Grihastha has got source of income by which he performs sacrifices and also he distributes them in charity. Similarly, one in the Vanaprastha, one who has taken austerities or who is nowadays, of those, the Vanaprastha system is not practically possible. But still, one who has taken austerities in the Grihastha stage of life, he has to study basically the Vedic literatures and meant to research philosophically by what this, because it's not possible to understand just by reading, but by understanding from a bona fide spiritual master. And the last one says about those who are the renounced order of life, they are supposed to control their mind and the senses. So in this way, all these prescribed activities prescribed, so that by performing these activities, one can be elevated to the platform of devotional service. Now, as we see here, the four ashramas are given, their prescribed duties are given. The next paragraph mentions, following paragraph mentions how by performing these duties, one is elevated to higher status of life, that is ultimately to reach to the process of devotional service to Krishna, or once reaches a stage of Krishna consciousness, which releases one from bondage in this material world. Now, all these activities, when they are performed without devotional service, they lead one to bondage in this material world, because one becomes bound by the resultant actions, resultant reactions of all these activities. All these are fruitive activities only. But when one performs these activities in connection with the Lord, then what happens is it's a part of Bhakti Yoga. Now, Bhakti Yoga also can be mixed, can be pure. But by performing these activities in Bhakti Yoga, one becomes free from bondage. Now, in Bhakti Yoga also, one can perform mixed Bhakti. I mean, one can perform Bhakti mixed with the desire to enjoy the results of these activities, or with a desire to get name, fame, etc. One can also perform to become a great scholar by trying to understand Vedic literature and try to get involved in philosophical speculation. So all these activities also can be mixed with devotional service. But in the second paragraph, Srila Prabhupada very clearly mentions, giving a quote from Bhagavad Gita, as to how the Lord instructs Arjuna that whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you sacrifice, whatever austerities you undergo, whatever charities you give, the result should be given to the Supreme Lord. So, unless and until one offers these results of these activities to the Supreme Lord, one becomes bound in this material world. So, offering results itself means keeping the Lord in the center. And by offering these results, it's a process of Bhakti Yoga. What is Bhakti Yoga? Bhakti Yoga means engaging all our senses to satisfy the senses of the Lord. So that is Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga. So when Bhakti Yoga becomes prominent, over a period of time, one might even perform mixed devotion service. But what happens is that as long as one has got that uh, ultimate goal of satisfying the Supreme Lord, even if it is mixed devotional service, then what happens is the Lord purifies one from these desires that one may have. So that is why it is said that one has to approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna himself, directly, which generally it is not possible for a common man. Common man always looks at results and trying to enjoy the results. That's why the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Bahunam Janmanamante Jnanavam Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvati Sumahatma Swadarlabhaga. So one, after many, many births, comes to an understanding that uh, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the ultimate enjoyer, is the ultimate proprietor, and he is the owner of everything, including us. And therefore, whatever we do, ultimately we have to do it for his satisfaction only. Now, this austerity and all these things, if you look at, now there are four pillars of religion, that is austerity, mercy, truthfulness, and cleanliness. So if you look at austerity is basically is a voluntary acceptance of bodily pains for a higher purpose, that is knowing who is the ultimate cause of this, that is Krishna himself. Now, here examples are Hiranyakashipu and Ravana also underwent severe penances for sense gratification, but they ultimately what happened was they resulted in misery. But if you see, Lord Brahma was empowered to create because Brahma wanted to create for the Brahma was ordered by Supreme Lord itself to create. So Brahma performed the duty as per the instructions of the Lord. So when Brahma asked for empowerment and to become free from bondage in the process of creation, the Lord himself told Brahma that I have already empowered you to create, and also I have given you your this thing so that you can be free from bondage in this material world in the process of creation. Another example is Vasudeva and Devaki, the parents of Krishna. They underwent severe penance to get Krishna as their son. So one can perform all these activities for the satisfaction of the Lord also. In the process, what happens is that one's desire also becomes fulfilled, and at the same time, they don't become free from bondage. Another example that is given is that our one of the Goswamis, the elder one, Sanatana Goswami, at the age of 65, he used to walk around the Govardhan Hill. Those days it was about 24 miles, I believe. That is about 36 kilometers. So while performing parikrama, he used to keep his vow of offering 1,000 obeisances to, that is, Dandavat Pranams. That means if you have gone to Govardhan, you'll see many people doing Dandavat Parikrama. So Sanatan Goswami used to do this 36 kilometers parikrama by this Dandavat, by which he was offering obeisances 1008 times to the Govardhan hill. So by in the process, he also offered obeisances to all the Vaishnavas he met. So when he did this, the Lord himself could not tolerate how Sanatana Goswami was taking such austerities at that age, 65. So one day it is said that Krishna himself appeared in front of Sanatana Goswami and he told him that you are too old to walk around the hill. You should now give up this vow. But Sanatana Goswami said somehow, no, I cannot give up this religious vow. I must carry on. And he continued. So second time, the Lord became very pleased with his determination. And he said, come, watch. See, I have stood on top of a large flat stone and I played my flute on the stone. So when he stepped off, then Sanatan actually saw that the stone melted and the Lord's footprints were imprinted on that. So the Lord then handed over that stone to Sanatan Goswami and said that instead of doing this parikrama of Dandavat for the Golden Hill, if you walk around this stone itself, it is as good as circumambulation of the Golden Hill. And this stone is still there in Govardhan. Anyone who goes to Govardhan can see this stone, which was given by the Lord himself to Sanatana Goswami. So, devotees who perform pure devotional service also practice activities, but they offer it to the Lord. In the process, they don't become bound by the results of these activities. Another example is Daksha. He performed austerities for many, many years, but he was even able to see Lord Narayana, but he did not know what to ask for from the Lord when he saw the Lord. So the higher principle of all these activities is utilizing everything in the service of Krishna. Now, penance in Bhakti Yoga gives happiness. Now, we all have, have a desire to attain happiness. So, but that happiness is something that there is no clear definition of happiness. What may be the result of happiness for one may not be the result of happiness for the other, because each one has got a different definition of happiness. For example, one might be getting happiness by being very opulent, but if that is the case, everybody who is rich in the world must be happy. It does not happen so. So even that happiness, what comes by attaining something material, it keeps fluctuating at every moment. The next moment, the same thing does not give happiness. So the real thing, what is mentioned is given the Bhagavad Gita, where the Lord says, one who is not connected with the Supreme in Krishna consciousness can have neither transcendental intelligence nor a steady mind, without which there is no possibility of peace of mind. And how can there be happiness without peace? So the one who is not connected through the results of the activities to Krishna consciousness, he does not have a proper intelligence, and nor does he have a steady mind, which is required to attain peace of mind. And if there is no peace of mind, there cannot be any happiness. So this is what the Lord has explained to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. The next important point is Atmendriya Jaya. Control of mind and taming of the senses is meant for persons in the renounced order of life. So one who has attained this renounced order of life, if he has not been able to control his mind and senses, automatically he becomes bound for his results in the next life. So that is why the Lord has prescribed each of activities based on one's qualities or qualifications, so that he becomes gradually elevated to the platform of Krishna consciousness and becomes free from the results of these activities. So the ultimate aim is to elevate one to the stage of Krishna consciousness. So all these activities have to be performed, and ultimately they should lead. Ideally, one should offer the results of these activities to Krishna. Even if one is not offering these activities to Krishna, ultimately it should lead one to the process of devotional service. Any activity must be performed for the sake of personality of Godhead. So that is why the Lord says, Yat karosi yadasnai, whatever you eat, whatever you do, whatever you sacrifice, whatever austerities you undergo, whatever charities you give, the result should be given to the Supreme Lord, so that we don't become bound. So one must execute these activities in such a way as recommended by the Lord himself in the scriptures. Now, it is mentioned in the Nectar of Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu also, Anya Vilashita Shunyam Jnanakarma Dhanavratam Anukulyena Krishna Anushilnam Bhaktirottama. The highest stage of devotional service is when one develops first-class devotional service, he becomes devoid of all the material desires. He becomes free from knowledge obtained by monistic philosophy. Monistic philosophy is one by which one thinks that one will become Lord himself. He will become one with the Lord. So this is the one which normally is practiced by impersonalists, who believe that the Lord does not have a name, he does not have form, he does not have qualities. They are all called monists because they think that they are Lord themselves. And by performing their process, I mean, here in this world, the Lord also explains Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga also. So the Lord has given the various duties that can be performed, the various processes also, and the various resultant reaction also, and how one can become free from all these. So when one performs a devotional service that is free from all these material desires, free from this monistic philosophy and furtive action, then one serves Krishna favorably as one should be doing. So the primary characteristic of all these things is that bhakti is the most important thing, and the secondary characteristics add on to the primary qualities that which makes the bhakti pure. So Anu means many things. We are Rupanugas as we follow Rupa Goswami. So constantly by always thinking of Krishna or the great devotee things. So Shilanam means actually to serve, meditate, and practice on it. So when one serves the Lord with his mind, words, and activities to satisfy the Lord, everything is engaged in the service of the Lord, then one becomes free from bondage. So Srila Prabhupada in this purport gives an example as to how when a hungry man, Srila Prabhupada mentions that there are two symptoms that happen by performance of devotional service, just as there are two processes that take place by eating. So a hungry man feels hungry, and but when he starts eating, he feels two things. One is he feels the strength and satisfaction from eating. At the same time, he gradually becomes detached from eating anymore. So two things happen. One is he becomes satisfied and he does not want to eat anymore. So similarly, Srila Prabhupada mentioned that with the execution of devotional service, real knowledge automatically develops, and one does not have to aspire for philosophical speculation or philosophical understanding. Automatically, the knowledge develops, and one becomes detached from all the material activities. So in Bhagavad Gita also it is mentioned as how by practicing bhakti one attains both knowledge and detachment. So by practicing you don't have to strive separately for getting knowledge, and you don't have to separately try for detachment from this material world also. So two things happen by performing devotional service. Detachment from matter and attachment for the supreme automatically develops. Now what happens is that we have in the process of our stay in this material world, we have developed a lot of attachment to so many things in the material world. Attachment to property, attachment to family, attachment to so many religious activities, so many attachments which I mentioned in the last class. So it is not very easy to give up these attachments, as mentioned in the Shastras, very easily because we have developed these attachments over a period of time. So this attachment continues birth after birth also because there is something called Janma Vasana. So we carry forward these things to the next birth also. But here it is clearly mentioned how by performance of devotional service, one two things happen. One develops attachment to Krishna automatically, and he becomes detached from all that is in matter. And what is that devotional service? That also is mentioned: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanam. So as long as one is engaged in devotional, these 9 processes of devotional service, that is starting with Shravanam, Kirtanam, and Vishnu Smaranam, when you do properly Shravanam and Kirtanam, the other processes automatically lead one to by proper constant hearing and chanting. One is automatically led to the other processes, that is Vishnu Smaranam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, and Atmanivedanam. That is the ultimate process is surrender to the Lord. But one may not be able to do it immediately. That is why it is said that even if one has got some desires, if we continue the process of Shravanam and Kirtanam, over a period of time, definitely one will be freed because ultimately the Lord is the one who gives the process of devotional service also. So at some point of time, now the Lord does not give material, fulfill material desires all the time to all the devotees who are practicing the devotional service. At some time, the Lord will give both the results of the activities also, but He won't give something that He knows because the Father knows what is good for His children. So the Lord as a Supreme Father, he knows that what is necessary and what is good for his children like us. So he will not give something by which we become bound in this material world. So even at some time, if the Lord gives a lot of material opulence in terms of family or wealth, etc., a time comes when the Lord withdraws from a prospective devotee at the right time. And when the person is sees that all these things are taken away from his life, automatically he has no other option but to surrender to the Lord. This is what the Lord does. So, but actually, by proper performing devotion service, one automatically becomes renounced from everything that is there in the material world and develops attachment to Krishna. So that is how that's the reason I gave the example of Sanatan Goswami also. Now, the other process, which is mentioned in the next paragraph, which says that before that, there are some examples I'll give. For example, Kamsa, he was always thinking of Krishna, but he was thinking of Krishna out of fear. Similarly, Shishupal, he was always thinking of Krishna out of envy. He would always criticize Krishna. But Sahadeva, who was one of the Pandavas, he was always, the Pandavas were always thinking of Krishna positively. That is why the Lord was always favorable to the Pandavas. And ultimately, all of these who were thinking of Krishna or envious of Krishna, they were all killed. So, Anukulyena means favorably, with a desire to please Krishna. That is what is devotional service. It is said that once, example is given by somebody in one of the classes I heard. A woman, she invited a lot of her friends to her house. So that day, she was wearing a very nice golden nose ring, and which was looking very, very attractive. And those who all came, they started admiring, and they asked her, how did she get it? She said that her husband had brought it from Dubai. So apparently, then there was no occasion for the gathering of the social circle. But then ultimately, what happened was that everyone realized that uh, the purpose of that social gathering was to exhibit the nose ring of whatever it is was brought by her husband. But there was one person who was a devotee of the Lord. He realized and he told that ultimately there is one person who has given the nose. That means the Lord has given the nose, and if she did not have the nose, even the nose ring would not have any effect. So the point was that everything ultimately comes to the Lord from the Lord. Lord gives everything to a person, whether it's a karmi or a jnani or a dhyana yoga or a bhakti yoga. Everything is given by the Lord for the purpose of giving these results to the Lord by the purpose of bhakti yoga. Some examples are given in Japanese Chaitanya Charitamrita also. Like, for example, Advaita Acharya. It is said that he used everything in the service of the Lord. And in the process, nothing got exhausted. As much as he went on using the paraphernalia and the service of the Lord, they would appear again and again. Similarly, one day with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was sitting in the house of Srivas Pandit Prabhu. So he asked him, he said that, I see that you don't go out anywhere. How then do you maintain your family? So Srivas Pandita said, I don't feel like going anywhere. Then Mahaprabhu told him, you have a very large family. How will you maintain them? So Srivas Pandita said, one will somehow or other receive whatever he is destined to receive. That means he was fully surrendered devotee. He said one can get whatever he deserves because ultimately comes from the Lord. So then Mahaprabhu said, why don't you then take sannyas? Srivas Prabhu said, I cannot do that. The Lord said, what will you do? When you starve for your food, you won't go begging, you won't go to the door begging because Brahmanas are supposed to go out begging for the Lord. Then the Lord told him that you won't go begging and you won't take sannyas also. How then will you maintain your family? Srivas Pandita clapped his hands 3 times and he said 1, 2, 3. Then Mahaprabhu asked him, what is this 1, 2, 3? Srivas Pandita replied, this is my firm conviction. If I do not receive food for 3 days, I will tell you the truth. I will tie a pot in my neck and drown myself in the bank of in the Ganges River. So his point was that because he was a surrendered devotee, fully surrendered to the Lord, he could tell this. Of course, we cannot do that because we all have prescribed duties to perform. But Srivas Pandita, being a pure devotee of the Lord, he would say that if I don't have food for 3 days, I will commit suicide in Kansas River by tying a pot in my neck. Then the Lord told him, even if Lakshmi has to beg one day, your household will not be afflicted by poverty. Then he quoted the verse from Bhagavad Gita, Ananyas Chintayonato Mam, and then said, how can my servants be in anxiety for food when I am there to maintain him in all the respect? Then he told Srivas, oh Srivas, you just sit happily at home, everything will come to your doorstep. Now, we are not here to imitate what Srivas Pandita was doing, but then we must understand that because Srivas Pandita was surrendered devotee of the Lord, he could take this decision, and the Lord told him that you don't have to struggle, but whatever is required for you for your maintenance of your family will automatically come to your doorsteps. So this is how a devotee who is surrendered to the Lord, he does not have to be separately anxious about maintaining his family. But one who is not so, he has to perform his activities based on his respective dharma or asrama. Then the next one says that one can also one can achieve elevation to the higher planetary systems like the heavenly kingdom by executing one's prescribed duties and by performing sacrifices. When one is transcendental to such desires because of accepting the known order, he can understand the Brahman feature of the Supreme, and when one is able to see his real constitution, he sees all other processes and becomes situated in stage of pure devotional service. At that time, one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. So the Lord can be understood in three stages, that is Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So the one who are impersonalist, by performing Jnana Yoga is philosophical speculation. By performing Jnana Yoga, they reach this Brahman. This Brahman also is the first stage of realization of the Supreme Lord. Which is this glaring effulgence coming out of the body of the Lord or covering the body of the Lord. So that is a stage attained by the Jnana Yogis. Then the Dhyana Yogis, they perform meditation on the form of the Lord in the heart. The Lord is situated in everyone's heart as Paramatma. And by performing meditation on that form of the Lord, they attain Vaikuntha planets. And then the real devotees of the Lord, by practicing Bhakti Yoga, they attain the various Vaikuntha planets like Golaka, Vrindavana, which is the topmost. So here Srila Prabhupada mentions that by understanding Bhagavan, feature of the Lord, one automatically understands Brahman feature, one also understands Paramatma feature also. But if you try to understand Brahman, you might not be able to reach the next stage. There are two ways. It is called the yoga ladder. One can understand first the Brahman feature and then understand the Paramatma feature gradually, step by step, and come to the process of Bhakti Yoga and try to understand Bhagavan feature. And the other process is that directly by performing Bhakti Yoga, automatically one realizes Bhagavan feature, by which already covers Brahman and Paramatma feature also. So, but what happens is that when one performs all the activities under the various demigods, these demigods are also part and parcel of the Supreme Lord only. But when one practices these activities for the satisfaction of various demigods, who are also part and parcel of the Lord, they become bound in this material world. By constitutional position, it is said that everyone is bound to do engaged in some service. Either one engages in devotional service of the Lord, or one engages in the service of his personal accompanying associates like Ross body or his family, society, or country. We see so many people take interest in serving the society, or they go to clubs, they do a lot of charity work and all these things. This is because there is a natural position in ours as a constitutional position, do some service. But when one does not engage in devotional service, one is automatically put to engage in other services like society, country, etc. And one becomes bound by these activities. But as soon as one is able to come to the stage of Bhakti Yoga, he realizes his constitutional position as a servant of the Lord, and he becomes detached from such all material services and engages in devotional service. So, as long as one is situated in three modes of material nature and performs these activities in the three modes, one may be elevated to the higher planetary systems, where the predominating deities are material representations of the Lord, like the sun god or the moon god, air god, Brahma or Shiva. There are so many heavenly planets, and by performing these activities for these satisfaction without understanding the constitutional position, one may be elevated to any of these heavenly planets. One may give a lot of charity by which one can attain heavenly planets. One may perform a lot of austerities by which one may be elevated to the sun planet or moon planet, etc. But all these are also planets in the material world. And again, after reaching those planets, if one does not get association of the devotees of the Lord, one does not
Right.
practice
Thanks so much.
One does not practice devotional service.
Thank
One
you.
comes back to this material world again to take birth. And these material planets also are dominated by other so many demigods. There are 33 crore demigods. And each and every demigod has got their own planetary systems. And all these demigods are representatives of the Supreme Lord only. So by material activities, one can approach only the demigods, where the Lord says, Yanti Deva Pata Devan. Those who are attached to the demigods and who perform prescribed duties can approach the abodes of the demigods. So if we are attached to the demigods, or if we perform activities for the satisfaction of demigods, or even without knowing, then one can attain this planet of demigods. One can even go to the planet of Pitas or forefathers. So similarly, but one who fully understands the real position of his life adopts the devotional service and
Thanks,
realizes
Manzi.
the supreme. So one who understands the position of life adopts devotional service and realizes the supreme personality of Godhead. So demigods are also jiva tattvas like us, and they have limited powers. They are all like ministers in a cabinet. There may be a cabinet which has got a chief minister, or the parliament you may have prime minister, and then there are so many others to assist the prime minister. Similarly, the demigods are like jiva tattvas like us only, but have limited powers. Someone who has performed a lot of devotion service and who has also had a lot of mixed desires, the Lord facilitates them to fulfill their desire by making them a demigod in the next birth also. This can also happen. But one cannot be a demigod forever, eternally in his life. Generally, after the results of the pious activities are over, they come back. Very rarely, seldom, there are chances of occasion, associating with devotees of the Lord and be practicing devotional service. Lord himself says in Bhagavad Gita 7:23, men of small intelligence worship the demigods and their fruits are limited and temporary. So whatever any demigod can offer, their results are also limited and temporary in nature. And those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, but the Lord says, but my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet. So demigods are ordinary living entities like us, and uh, also it is not that they are free from trouble in the heavenly planets. In the heavenly planets also there are always trouble created by the demons, and when they are in trouble, they go to Lord Vishnu in the shore. They go to the abode of Lord Vishnu in the shore of Svetadipa and recite what you all know is Purusha Shukta prayers, and they ask for shelter of the Lord and ask for protection. Sometimes they are promoted to higher levels due to their devotional service. So in heavenly planet, the chances of performing devotional service, but it's not very easy. Like we see here also, how very, very opulent people, they seldom take up to devotional service because they feel they have got everything. They feel satisfied. Similarly, sometimes even demigods also, they don't take up to devotional service very easily. That's why they come back once the results are over. So just like ministers who occupy posts for 5 years or 10 years, similarly, those who attain the heavenly planets come back here. Some might get the opportunity of uh, uh, performing devotional service. It is also said that demigods can't do anything on their own. They are also under the control of the same Supreme Lord, and they are also under the control of the same time. The time factor varies from here to the heavenly planets, but they are also under the control of the time factor. And they cannot do anything without the sanction of the Lord. Their benedictions are also temporary, and they are just like powerful ministers, and their power is also given by the Supreme Lord on a temporary basis. And also, when they misuse their powers are all withdrawn, as we see when the Govardhana pastime, when the Lord was Indra got puffed up, he lost all his powers, and ultimately he had came to the point of surrender to the Supreme Lord. But this does not happen to everyone at all point of time. So one should not think that I will go to the perform devotional service and continue to have material desires. But even with material desires, if one performs devotional service simultaneously, very sincerely, the Lord makes that living entity to become free from these desires and make his devotional service perfect and pure by making him understand his real constitutional position of being a servant of the servant and the servant of the Lord. And this way, he becomes free from all desires and goes back to Krishna, to any of the spiritual planets as per his desire. But on the other hand, if one engages in all these processes purely by adopting Varnashrama system or by practicing the other processes like Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Karma Yoga, etc., one becomes bound in this material world. But by performance of pure Bhakti Yoga, one becomes elevated automatically to the spiritual world. So with this, I conclude the class for the day. So next 2 minutes, I can take any questions or any comments if anybody has got. Does anybody has any questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. No
Hare Krishna,
questions.
Mataji.
Very clear explained. Very clearly explained. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you. Anybody else?
But I am yet to understand, Prabhuji, because
Yes,
these
Mataji.
demigods, some lectures where I hear, they say that Shiva is not a demigod. He is very powerful.
Yes.
And but still, Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead.
Yes.
So whether to continue worshipping Shiva
It is
or
also
to stop it,
okay. Complete your question, please.
I'm little confused about
whether we should continue
no,
worshipping
whether
Shiva.
to continue worshipping Shiva. Of course, Krishna we definitely worship. So
Yes.
Shiva also we pray, right? So whether we should continue doing that or stop it, I just want to know.
You can. It is also said in the Shastras, Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu. Of all, Shiva is one of the greatest devotees of the Lord. So automatically, when you worship Krishna, worship of Shiva is already considered into that, taken into that. So you need not worship Lord Shiva separately, but you can worship Lord Shiva as a great devotee of the Lord, by which Shiva also becomes pleased and Lord Krishna also becomes pleased. All of these demigods like Brahma, Lord Shiva, they are all great devotees of the Lord. So by worshipping them as devotees of the Lord, they also become pleased and the Lord also becomes pleased. You don't have to separately worship them as God. They are not on the same platform as the Supreme Personality of God.
Okay. Now, recently the Shivaratri was there, right? So we all went to the temple. Is it okay, or do we have to stop that also?
No. There is nothing wrong in going to any demigod temple. You can always go to the temple and worship them as servants of the Lord. You cannot worship them as the Supreme Lord, but you can always go to the demigod's temple. Don't ask for any material benediction. You ask them for benediction of giving devotional service to Krishna, they'll be very happy to give you it. They can give you that benediction also. Instead of asking for any material opulence or benefits, you can ask them that please give me service to Krishna. They'll be very happy because they are also devotees of the Lord. They would like to encourage the souls from this material world also to be engaged in devotional service. So they will be very happy to help you in that.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Thank you much. Thank you much.
But some of our relatives, they are not agreeing for this. So just allow them to continue doing it so that Shiva himself will guide them for Krishna worship.
One is that you must always, whenever you discuss, not everybody, as the Lord himself says, it takes many births for one to come to the understanding that Vasudeva is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So whenever you discuss with them, you must always give a reference to the scriptures and show them from the scriptures how each of the position is. Sometimes even after your explanation, they may not listen to you. But over a period of time, you can always please pray to the Lord to give them, open their eyes. That will the Lord can facilitate that also. That is the supreme best prayer you can always ask for. Please give them the knowledge also by which they understand their position. That can always be done. But it's not that everything will immediately happen. Some take time, some immediately it happens. So it depends on one's conditioning in this material world.
Okay, one more question that is for my clarification. Some devotees, they would have felt the presence of divine in many times in their life, at the time of difficulty or at the time of some problem where they have to face it. They have faced the presence of the divine, that in the air you feel that weightage, right? Somebody is there.
Yes.
So, but not able to chant. So for such devotees, what do you say, Prabhuji? They are not able to, though they want to. But presence of divinity they have experienced and they are still continuing experiencing it.
Okay. But they are not able to chant.
So they have progressed in many other aspects in spiritual rituals. But this chanting, it's not happening continuously. Like sitting in one place and chanting is not happening. So what do you say for this?
Now, this is all because of our conditioning due to the previous births. It need not necessarily be cleaned at one time. Sometimes it may take many births also. But we don't give up our efforts. We continue to put our efforts from our side to open their eyes and always pray for them. That is the best thing we can do. And even if they are progressing spiritually, some it may be immediate. Within a year, within a few years, they may realize that they are meant to serve the Lord. For some, if their conditioning is very, very strong and they are totally bound, it may take many years. Sometimes it may be even many births. But we don't give up on them just because they are not able to chant sitting in one place. Sometimes due to old age, sometimes due to their material conditioning, they may be wanting to walk and chant. Now, we must not find fault with them that they are not able to sit and chant, though that is the best way possible. But if they are chanting by walking, it's okay. Gradually, the Lord will also facilitate them. As long as they are engaged in some spiritual activities, we must let them have their own space and time. We cannot expect anyone to be surrendered fully from the day one that they take up the process. it depends to what extent they are conditioned. So, but we always give our suggestions and we pray to the Lord for their betterment. That is the best we can do.
That's what Prabhuji, that feeling of Krishna is there always in the mind. Any activity you do, Krishna is there in your mind.
But still, they don't have that mood for surrender. Lord will make them surrender, put them into difficulty sometime, by which they will automatically surrender. If you see, we also might have taken into the process due to some difficulties that have come into our life. Maybe our conditioning was not so strong because of which we could take it up. But if their conditioning is very strong, we cannot expect everyone to fall in at the same time and process way that the way we have fallen in. Sometimes it may not happen in this birth. So, but devotion service is something, it doesn't go waste. Whatever is done, it gets carried forward to the next birth. So we keep engaging them in these devotional activities and pray for them. That is the best thing we can do, as long as we don't get contaminated or conditioned by association with them.
Okay. No, my case only I'm telling. I have experienced divine presence in many times.
Okay. Now we must also understand. Yeah.
I have the confidence that he's there for me, and he is there. He has shown that.
Okay.
But
Okay.
only the chanting, I am not able to do still. Of course, I'm praying for him because I hear from all of you that chanting is very, very important. It should be done. But without that, I'm feeling his presence. He's showing, and that abhaya, all that I'm feeling it. Okay. So I'm a little confused about it.
You must take to the process of chanting. The reason is that in this Kali Yuga, that is the only means of deliverance. You continue the process of hearing and all those things, but end of the day, the chanting process is the only thing that can keep you remember Krishna. At the time of death, don't think it is very, very easy to remember the Lord at the time of death. I've seen many, many souls who have left their bodies, who have been practicing so many things. It's not very easy because the conditioning is very strong. It's not easy to remember Krishna at the time of death. So the Shastras recommend that we should chant the name of the Lord. And by chanting the name of the Lord, you'll be always definitely remember the Lord, and you'll always be engaged in the service of the Lord. Shravanam Kirtanam will lead you to Vishnu Smaranam and Archanam Vandanam, and all these next stages will fall only if your Shravanam and Kirtanam is strong. These are the first two fundamental principles. Of course, there are other things like one should always associate with devotees, honor Krishna Prasadam. If these things are not followed, then the process may get delayed and delayed and delayed. So one must try as much as possible visiting holy places with devotees of the Lord, taking the association. One must honor Krishna Prasadam. Then when everything falls in place, the chanting will also fall in place at some time. But merely leaving it to understand that the Lord is present with me and he will take care of me and not taking up the process of chanting, these things may not help for a long time. Kali Yuga deliverance is only through chanting.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. I'll try my best. Thank you.
Sure, Mataji. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you all very much. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.